book. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's hardly the worst thing happening in the world right now. But I
Yeah.
think my editor was right. It's kind of catchy. There is so much BS out there. We need to be better at detecting the BS. And so I think the majority of people really liked the catchy title. And there were just a few who was like, how dare you say BS?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, not everyone's going to be happy with the choices we
Yeah.
make, and ultimately we just try to do the best we can with all of our limited
Yep.
information. And at the end of the day, we're all
Yeah.
humans still. We're not robots. You know, doctors make mistakes and we all need to learn from them. So it makes
And
sense.
sometimes you just
What do
need to
you
say
think?
BS.
Yeah, we say BS. I feel like that should be in the dictionary now. Like
You
BS is
know?
colloquial
Yeah.
term standing for things that are not real.
Yep.
What's your favorite question in this book that you address?
Oh, on a different day, it's a different one because I kind of liked the challenge of when someone asked me a question about a myth, like tracing the origin story of that myth, like how did this even come to be?
Mhm.
There is this whole thing about the detox teas and the cleanses that really bothers me because they can come across as just like healthy. It's just a tea. But as you'll see in the book, people have died from drinking what is labeled as natural and herbal. And that's because, herbs are medicinal too. And you mix them up with certain prescription medications or with alcohol, and it can really do a lot of damage. So I'm quite passionate about that chapter. But I want people to know that your kidneys and your liver and your lymphatic system does that work of cleansing for you 24/7. You don't need to spend a ton of money on juice cleanses or colonics or believe in these like Instagram flat tummy teas. And I think another thing to think about there is that people are exploiting our belief that being healthy means you look a very specific way. Like you must be slim, like you must be this. And so I think it's important that we counter that diet culture and this idea that only one size is healthy.
Yeah, that's so true. And you see that happening on Instagram with some influencers or celebrities who oftentimes are photoshopping their photos, getting cosmetic
Yeah,
plastic surgery and claiming or paying for expensive trainers and diet programs and then claiming, oh, my results came from this little like bag of tea. And the
yeah,
reality is, no, it didn't. Even if it did, it didn't come magically solely because of this tea. And
right,
it
right.
kind of like I think about the people who are harmed by the tea, uh, by ending up in the emergency rooms, mixing it with
Mm.
medications, etc. But I also think about the individuals who skipped out on true ways to help them
Yeah,
address their weight
yeah,
issues. True weight individuals who could have eaten a healthier diet, perhaps to quote unquote detox, to have a healthy, mindful conversation and spend 5 minutes deep breathing.
yep.
Because like it's very easy, even for individuals like us who get busy, to say, oh,
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
want to spend, 10 minutes twice a day breathing and thinking about my uncomfortable feelings. I'd rather
Breathing. I
drink
hope you're
something that'll
breathing
make
all
me
the
feel better.
time, but yeah. No, I know.
Exactly.
But you raise a really good point that sometimes it might just seem like, well, it won't do any damage, but then it could stop you from getting the actual treatment that would help you.
Yeah.
And that's the case with the chapter that's called something like, should you eat your baby's placenta?
Yeah.
Because you might think, why would anyone do that? But there's been a ton of celebs and influencers swearing by it. And so if they, as some of them have, make the claim that if you eat your placenta after you deliver your baby, you'll be cured of postpartum depression, that's super dangerous because not only could you get a very serious infection and your baby could also get an infection from you eating your placenta, but postpartum depression is serious. You need really good professional care for that. And I don't want people just eating their placenta thinking, I'm good, nothing can happen to me now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's aggressive, and I'm curious because there are so many valid questions in this book. Maybe your publisher won't be excited to hear this, but which question did you want to put in the book, but perhaps excluded, but you wished it was in there?
Oh gosh, that's a really hard question. There were none that were excluded because, oh, it's so controversial. Or, you
Okay.
know what, I will say to you, my first book that came out 2 years ago, it's about the HIV pandemic
Hmm.
and the origins of it. And there's a bit in that book where I talk about the history of vaccines and how vaccination programs in the US in the early 1900s had problems. People got sick from the vaccines that actually happened, right? And then it was rectified. At that time in 2018, my publisher was really nervous and he was like, anti-vaccine movements are becoming really strong. I think we should take out the negative stuff you say about vaccines. And I said to him, you know, I get your point. He had young kids. He was like really pro-vaccine. I get your point. But I think to build trust in science, we have to be super transparent about what's gone wrong in science. I think cutting it out of the book doesn't help anyone. It's more helpful to say, hands up, science has messed up in the past. Here's what we've learned from that. Here's ways that we can have public accountability so we don't just keep repeating our mistakes. But that with the first book was definitely like a tricky challenge we had. And I knew he was coming from a good place. He was really worried. But my motto and my philosophy still is be transparent. You know, science has a sordid history of egregious, unethical experimentation, which is actually why now in 2021, there are some people that have legitimate reasons for not trusting doctors, not trusting scientists. And I think you only build up that relationship by saying, yep, screwed up, bad things have happened. How do we not do that again?
Yeah, it's such an important topic right now with communities of color being disproportionately affected with COVID-19, dying from COVID-19, but
Yeah.
also the reluctance to want to get vaccinated because of past issues that came up with science, with the medical community, the way they mistreated communities of color.